That's recorded now. We are up. We are live. Thursday night. We're cheer. We're chatting. We're talking. I guess we need to start this off by. Why don't you just introduce a little bit about yourself? Because I hate doing introductions. So why don't we just start that?
That's totally fair. My name is Ameet. I am the owner and founder of an online marketing agency called Hopskip Media. So we specialize in pay-per-click advertising like Google Ads, Facebook, Instagram. I've been in the industry for 13 years now. Started my first business at 19, and that's kind of how I ended up in PPC in the first place. It was an event planning company, and I was like, oh, let's try to sell tickets. And then 3 years later, I was like, I hate event planning, and decided to pack up my stuff, leave British Columbia, move to Alberta, which are like neighboring provinces, and started like a PPC career. So I went from like spending $3,000 a year to 4.3 million essentially overnight. Yeah, it was pretty. It's been a wild career. It's been a wild career.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and I got to do a lot of stuff with Google during that time too. So like a couple case studies. They flew me out to San Francisco for like an event. Got spotlighted by them a couple times. Was part of an ambassador program that was like 25 people all across. Well, not all across the world. They were only in North America, so it was 25 people in North America, but we were the only 25 at that point.
So good. So good.
Yeah, they ended up sunsetting the program, which kind of sucked. But I get to tell everyone that I was the beta tester on that one. So yeah, it's been an interesting career to say the least.
Okay, so let's take it back a little bit here, and for the audience reasons, and especially for me not knowing a lot about this world. When you say, I know pay-per-click, PPCs, pay-per-click, whatever, you're a pay-per-click specialist. So what exactly is pay-per-clicking or pay-per-click?
So pay-per-click is essentially like a method of digital advertising where you pay per click. So when we look at, let's say Google Ads, you're on the search engine, you search for, let's say, a plumber, you'll see like 3 ads at the top, and then the rest will be organic listings. That's essentially pay-per-click. So we don't pay for the impression. So if you see the ad and scroll through, it's free branding in a sense. If you actually paid attention and figured out what our name was really at this point. But if we actually click, that's when it costs me money, basically. So it's a really effective form of advertising just because you're able to track it, which is something that traditional means have always had a little bit of an issue with, especially with like TV ads and billboards, because you're paying for eyes, but you sit there and you're like, I don't really know how many people actually came and bought from me. It's just there's ways to do it, but it's not effective. With pay per click, we're able to actually sit there and say this person clicked on this search query, came in through this ad, and then converted in this manner. So it could be a phone call, it could be a sale, it could be a lead. Even downloads and stuff like that are sometimes really important to clients. So then you're able to track it all the way from like the start of their journey all to the end, which is something that I find really fascinating.
So, all right. So like when you Google something, like if you, like you say, Google a plumber, and the first 3 things says like sponsored ads or something. Is that what it says at the very top? So that's what it is. And if I clicked on one of them, then somebody is getting money for me clicking onto that.
Yeah. So we're no one's making money off of the click. What Google is.
Sure.
So we're paying Google for that click. And then if you were to convert, that's when like the exchange of money would happen between you and that business.
So somebody, like if I had a plumbing business and I wanted to make sure I was at the top of every search, then I'm paying Google to be at the top of every search. And then depending on how many clicks I get and stuff, is then we start to figure out the money sharing.
Yeah, basically. So really at this point, we're trying to figure out what type of words or queries people are putting in that cause them to convert immediately. So there's certain like phrases. So especially with like plumbing's a really great example, just because there's emergencies that happen.
Sure.
So like pipe bursting, plugged toilet, like random things like that, or not random, horrible things like that, I guess, really. We know that, well, if somebody clicks through, the chances are very high that they're actually going to come and convert because they're in like a pickle at that point. So it's a matter of just figuring out what those queries look like and then just putting as much money as we can behind those just to bring those people into the site.
So is it all based on all right? So part of your day, is that what it's looking at? Is figuring out what people are searching, what keywords are the most things, like you said, besides plumber, somebody will say, hey, my toilet's plugged or whatever.
Mhm.
And so you got to figure out like certain words or phrases that people will be saying all day in order to get these certain ads to pop at the top. And sorry if my questions are kind of stupid because I don't know what.
No, no,
Yeah.
no, they're totally fine. They're perfect questions, actually. Yeah, so essentially that's basically what my days kind of look like. I'm sifting through like reports that tell me what somebody put into the search query, but then also what we actually showed up for. So sometimes we can easily say something like plugged toilet or something, but somebody might be putting in destroyed toilet. I don't know. And we could still technically show up for it, right? So
I mean,
I could have thought of a better word, and I really
but I'm sure there's hundreds of people that actually type it.
Oh man.
Love it.
But yeah, that's essentially basically really kind of it. It's just like if we want to say plug toilet, but like Google will sit there and be like, but this seems relevant.
Yeah.
So I'm going through those search queries and be like, okay, is that actually relevant for us, or is that something that's wasting ad spend? So there's a little bit of a balancing act where you kind of on the flip side of it have to create something called a negative keyword list. So it's essentially just a list of keywords that you don't want to show up for. So like oftentimes my universal list will be like cheap, free, pro bono, R like X-rated words as well and stuff like that. Sure. So that way we make sure that like we're not showing up for stuff that we don't want to be showing up for. And I think a really great example of that would be like massage, and your mind can go wherever it needs to on that one.
I understand.
So we're putting in negative keywords because we obviously RMTs aren't people who will be doing the other stuff with you, right? So so we make sure that we have a negative keyword list already set that we're like, these are words that if you put massage and this word together, we don't want to show up at all. And that helps us make sure that one, we're not spending money that we don't necessarily need to be spending, but also it helps keep brand like integrity in that sense too. Cause the last thing you want to do is show up for an ad that isn't quite family friendly, especially if you're like a family friendly type of business.
Yeah. So are you mainly working with the business owners in this?
Mm-hmm.
Is that mainly your spot in those? So again, like they would work with you and just say, hey, I don't want certain keywords to pop up, or you just go ahead and throw out those negative keywords, not to allow them to pop up, to say, hey, if you are a massage parlor, you probably shouldn't make sure we'll do this, and this, so that, the weird stuff doesn't come up.
Yeah, I usually go in and kind of just do it on my own because it's just part of the practice on my end. Sometimes clients will come back and be like, okay, there's these certain words that are like completely no in our industry, and I'll take those and just create lists off of them. But it really just gradually increases as we start getting more data in, especially on that search terms report. So as we try to figure out what we're actually showing up for, that's how I really am able to figure out what those negative keywords need to look like. Because I'll sit there and be like, okay, we showed up 2 times for this word. It's not something that we want to show up for. So now I'm just going to completely just go and negate it. So yeah, it's like more of like a weekly, bi-weekly practice, depending on how large the account is. Could be daily if it's like an account that's spending a ton of money. But it's usually something like weekly or bi-weekly that we're going through those reports, just making sure that everything's okay.
Well, I had 2 thoughts on that. So, well, going back though, so in your background, I know you said you started your business at 19 years old, but did you have a background in marketing or digital marketing or IT or any of this, or would you just kind of learn this process as you went, being sought out by Google, and you just kind of saw what was working and used trial and error? And I guess it's like, what was your background? Or you just, naturally good at, this type of stuff?
A mix of both. So I actually went to school originally for business administration with a minor in entrepreneurial leadership. Nice. And I took like a micro and a macro class, economics, and realized that I hated it. And I was like, there's no way that I want to do the next one, like the advanced or whatever the next one was called. And I remember sitting there looking at like all of these courses, and I'm like, well, what do I do? And then I realized marketing actually had like I could transfer the most credits over to marketing. Yeah. And that's literally how I got into marketing. Like, I just didn't want to do macro and microeconomics. And then we had one class, it was 3 hours long, went over all of digital marketing. So email, content, social, Google Analytics, a little bit of PPC. And for some reason, it stuck out in my head. So when I went off to start my business, I just thought, hey, might be cool to just try these ads, maybe put $100 to them, see what happens. And I can't really explain it. For some reason, it just made sense in my head. I'm very mathematical, and pretty analytical as well, just naturally. So then eventually I just kind of started selling tickets through that and realized I was actually pretty decent at it, but like, I just didn't know what to do. Because really careers, even at that point, were still in traditional marketing. Like digital marketing wasn't it wasn't as large as it is now. So then I don't know where I got the idea. I moved to Alberta, and then suddenly people were like, "Hey, you have the skill set that we're looking for." And I was like, "What skill set is that?" Like, sure, I have it. Yeah, and then I interviewed for one place, and he offered me the job literally like on the spot, and I started, I think, like the day after. Yeah, I admittedly that job I probably should have probably thought about a little bit more, just because I was like doing the job of like 2 to 3 people and didn't even realize it at that time, because like I never had managed a portfolio like that before.
Yeah.
The most I had was 1 account, so I just assumed 68 accounts, whereas normal, it is not. It is not.
Well, do you think that sets you up though, just going into knowing that, okay, 68 counts is my first thing. That's your normal now, compared to if you just had 2 accounts, like, I can handle 68 accounts. This is normal. This is no issue for me. Now, if you would have had, but I guess that's my question, that if you would have had 2 or 3, you would have do you think that would have, what's the word am I looking for? Digressed your progress and all this in this industry?
Yeah, 100%. I'm actually like, I mean, it was a torture of a year, just because like I kept on screaming, going, I need help. Like, this is far too much. Because on top of like the actual ad accounts that I was managing, I would have to do all the reporting and then talk to the clients too. So that was like 3, 4 jobs in one
Sure.
in one role, and nobody really quite understood it. So for me, it was really frustrating. But when I think back at it, I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have been here had I not had that experience, just because I learned how to move through accounts much faster. I learned quite a bit faster than most people had. So like by the time I was done month 3, 4, I had people who had been in the industry for 5, 6, 7 years telling me that I was just as good as them.
Nice.
Because I would just ask the same, like I would ask questions, but I wouldn't ask them. Like, I think the thing that I really annoys me about anybody asking questions is that they don't bother trying before. It's just almost like they've given up before they've even started. And that's really irritating for me. So I never took that approach. I'd always sit there and be like, I tried this, and I tried this. It's not working. And I looked at this article and I did this. And I think that's why a lot of the community members had like welcomed me so much, because they were like, well, you're not giving up. You've literally tried everything you can possibly think of, and now you've run out of ideas. So oftentimes I would get them calling me from like, I think it's Richmond, Virginia or something like that, like randomly, like random places in like the state, even in Canada. And we'd just sit there talking about like random stuff. And my boss would come in and he's like, who are you talking to? And I'm like, some guy on the internet. Like, I don't know. And I'm like, he's helping me. He'll figure it out. It's fine. And I think that was really what helped like cement myself in the career that I ended up in. And then especially being in a city that didn't have very many people who were doing what I was doing, it really helped me carve out space without even realizing it for myself as the authority, which is still paying off to this day, which is kind of weird, because it's just like, I did not intend for this, but I am very grateful that it happened.
What did you intend for, you think, originally? Or did you have exact?
Honestly,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I had any idea of what I
I
was
love it.
doing. Honestly, I think I figured it out maybe 2 years ago.
I love it.
You know,
Yeah.
it
But
was
no,
just I just got lucky.
well, going on what you said though, that the way you just kind of hit the ground running and you started just taking hard things and making them work for you in the beginning, rather than just, I don't want to say fail, but just kind of when you did, or if you were not getting it at first, you just kept, progressing through it and trying to get it till you got it right or whatever. And, I'm one of these CrossFit bros, and that's one of these things that I'm thankful for having that in my life. Cause putting myself through those certain workouts and just weightlifting in general, is that made me learn to do hard things, and learn that if instead of something, how am I want to put this, something coming that might be hard to others, that I like to take on just because for me, it's like, it's like what you said. That's almost natural to me. It's just like, all right, that's fine. Let's go do this. And if it sucks, all right, we'll figure it out then. And if it doesn't suck, then we've made ourselves better. But it's made daily life better for me. If you get cut off in traffic, if the waiter gets your, I don't know, order wrong, if, just something stupid like that. Right. And just like, oh, it's no big deal. Right. Just, worst things have happened, I'll be okay here. When you put your, this is not really hard. When you know what hard is, you're like, okay. Yeah, and that's what really helps out the mindset, in my opinion. And I respect the hell out of that. Like, especially you not quitting and keep going. And so, wait, did you freeze up?
It really does.
Oh, there you are. Wait, you're still here?
No. Oh, yeah.
Okay, now you're back. You froze
yes,
up.
I'm totally here
For a second. Good.
Okay.
But yeah, that was my whole point. And then, what's up? No?
Oh, okay. No, we're good. I don't know what's happening now.
Okay. So wait, I still got my train of thought. But yeah, in just doing that though, and now that the more I read and like look up studies, I was listening to another podcast about they're basically talking about doing hard things and putting yourself through those type of challenges in everyday life, and that there's a lot of research coming out now that as far as age cognitive decline that it happens now. That did I say that right? So basically, if you keep doing that right, your brain is like better off, especially when you get older, and it's not deteriorating as like to what is it, Alzheimer's and dementia and all that. So yeah, when it makes you feel good now that when I go out and do stuff like this, it's like, yeah, I'm so good. I still got it.
I know. I went to my first in-person like networking type of event last night. And it was kind of one of those moments that was really interesting because a lot of these speakers were talking about like obviously being your authentic self and all of this other like random stuff about personal branding. But there was this one person, he's an optometrist, and he sat there and he was just like, what, if you were to describe yourself, like, how would you describe yourself or something along those lines? And I remember everybody sitting there and they were just like completely blank, had no idea what to say. And I remember sitting there and I was like, I can almost guarantee that I might be the only person in the room that has a word in my head to very succinctly kind of explain who I am as a human being, and it's resilient.
Nice.
So like, there is like, literally, I will, can I swear?
Yeah, say whatever you want. That's free speech right here. You say anything you like.
I just wanted to make sure as I continued to do it anyway. But I'll bitch and whine about it for as long as I possibly can. But like, the one thing about me is that I will get back up. There's no there's never any doubt in my mind. Even if I want to quit, I just keep on going. So like, it's kind of always interesting because a lot of people will see that and just be like, you constantly get the shit kicked out of you. Yeah. And somehow you still get back up. And I'm like, because it's the only life I know. I'm like, I don't know if I could ever go back to a corporate job where the responsibility isn't all mine and then come home and be fulfilled in that way. I feel like that having that responsibility, knowing that these clients are relying on us, is something that I take pride in. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't own the company too. I think that it's a completely different mindset. So for me, I feel like resilient is probably the best word to actually describe who I am, especially if you consider the career that I've had and all the ups and downs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that. Just because, and like I was saying, with doing hard things, like when I do my competitions and, just taking on daily life, I guess, randomly, or doing my daily Wordle too, I guess. But anyway, but just when people, and I'm generally speaking, and I'm kind of talking bad about myself too at the same time, that, when somebody says like, they're having a really tough day and, or they got bad news and they're just going to go home and sit around all day and mope and not really do anything about it. It's like, what? That's so weak, and it's just like, I look down on it now, and just rather than, I still try to lend out a hand or say, hey, if you need a vent or whatever, come talk to me. But it's still at the same time, it's like what you said, you could either just keep, sitting down there and doing nothing about it, or get back up and try to do something about it. And it's just, when I look at people like that, I say, why are you that way? Like, why do you, why are you that way? Get up and, make shit happen. If you don't like the way the conversation's going, change it. Was that Donald Draper? Is that his name? But anyway,
I think so.
Yeah. Madman. I don't know why that came in my head, but anyway, but that's kind of what I see now. And just that I hate looking at people that way, but that's the first reaction that I get. That's like, okay, maybe I don't want you on my team. So, and I know that's probably bad to say, but yeah.
But that's your value, right? So I think that's like, I don't think that's a wrong way to look at things. I think it's different really from other people. And I really think that everyone's just because we're just so used to immediate gratification with social media now. I think that's kind of part of the problem.
It is.
So when like somebody ends up in front of an obstacle and there's no immediate gratification or whatever the alternative word would be for it, or
Your dopamine rush or whatever.
Yeah, like if that wasn't happening, I think a lot of them would just sit there and be like, okay, well, it's time to call it quits. Because like the moment I post something on social, it gets X amount of likes right away and X amount of comments and people are engaging. And it's just like, well, that's not reality though.
Yeah.
Like that's not, you don't walk outside in your new dress and people start liking it. Like it's not real life. And I feel like a lot of us have just trapped ourselves into our computers or our phones a bit too much on that front. And I know that I'm horrible at it myself. I literally live on Instagram. Like it's the worst, but I've gotten to the point where I've kind of stopped watching everybody else and I just engage with accounts that make sense for me. And then that's the end of it, right? Like I was just like, what's the point? So I've been unfollowing pretty significantly for the last year of just people that I'm like, this doesn't make any sense anymore. Like, why do I even follow this? And that's been like significantly better on my side of things because I'm not sitting there comparing myself to people and then getting upset about it and then hindering my own success. Because like the moment you take the eye off of your own ball or out of your lane or whatever you want to say is the moment that you're really hurting yourself and not anybody else. You're watching something else while you're driving. You might crash into the wall, but you're paying attention to XYZ person behind you for whatever reason. And that's always been like kind of my thing where I'm like, okay, just you're doing you, let everybody do their own little thing and call it a day and just be happy for them and hope that they're happy for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I went through the same process, especially during COVID that, and COVID was kind of like life didn't really change much for me during COVID, except that I just had to put on a mask when I went out. You know, I live in a pretty rural area. You know, I have access to a gym whenever I want. Work didn't really change for me much, but my point is that with all this is that, you know, and there was days I was working from home and that I would, you know, get on my phone and start scrolling and just mindlessly during, you know, on Instagram for whatever reason, right? Even especially when I'm watching TV shows, movies or whatever. But I got to a point where that it's like, why am I following all these people? And just like, oh wait, you know, cool car. Okay, that's cool. Like, oh, right, they're modeling their new whatever clothes, and then it got to me, why is this really bringing me that much value? And I guess, you know, I probably stole this from other podcasts of people who were doing it, and I got to a point where I wanted to do it, and just like you were saying, just all right, unfollow them. Like, are they really bringing? How much joy is that really bringing into my life? To know that, oh, got up, looked at Instagram, oh, you know, Rich Froning did, you know, a 315 snatch. Oh, cool. Like, you know, like that's not. You know, I don't, in almost in whose comparisons a thief of joy. Then I started like almost like, well, I need to be doing that type of shit. So
yeah,
it was
and then
like
you start buying random stuff that you don't necessarily need to just like keep up.
Yeah, so it was a good purge for me, and I'm glad I did it, and I still do it randomly. Just whenever I start kind of thinking about it, and like, you know, I'm just sitting there playing on my phone again. It's like, I don't need to follow this person anymore. And just like, you know, again, what value is that? You know, and I'm not saying I do that for every celebrity or star or, you know, whatever, but it just feels good. You know, it just feels something you get like, okay, I got one up on them. I'm better now. I don't need to follow them. But you know, but I mean, but again, you know, I still like Instagram. I mean, I'm addicted as much as anyone else and like going through it and seeing what other people are doing with their lives. And, you know, and I do get good stuff from it too. I mean, it's not all bad. It's not toxic. So just depending on it depends on what you follow. So
yeah, for me, it's a lot of educational content. I like learning, so I just go, let's just follow doctors and other people in like the fields, right? So like social media, web dev, and stuff like that. Where I'm like, I could learn more about what you guys do, and that's been really kind of fun just to like sit there and just use it as an educational platform, and less about like watching what XYZ person went off to Peru and bought, I don't know, a designer bag or something like that. Cause like I was talking to a financial what does she do? She's like helps with budgeting, financial planner, I guess.
Yeah.
And she literally called me one day and she's like, I went to somebody who has like 600,000 followers deep in debt, like the deepest in debt, because she ended up leaving America, went to Paris to live out this whole like fancy life. And now she has to keep on buying new stuff and has racked up so much debt that like she doesn't know what to do. So my friend called and she's like, these are the people that we're comparing ourselves to. Like,
Uh,
how ridiculous. Right? She's like, I would rather have money. Like, I don't know what you guys are talking. Like, she's like, I don't care about the Louis Vuitton bag. She's like, I'd rather be able to retire like 20 years rather than like doing what everybody else is up to. So it's just been kind of interesting seeing where everyone's values are. And I guess there's nothing really wrong with wanting to buy all this designer stuff. It's just not for me, or at least not right now.
Yeah, no, and I don't want to shit on really nice things because I like nice things, and
Of
I
course.
really like nice cars, and but like I'm sitting here wearing a competition T-shirt that I would just sit and wear that all day. That was given to me free, but damn, oh yeah, that was my point. But the point is that I used to think that money would be happiness and would get you
Mm-hmm.
everything in life that you ever wanted. And I'm not saying it doesn't, but I mean, but somebody, I was interviewing on here basically told me they got all the money that they ever needed to spend 2 or 3 lifetimes, and they still, basically had a hole in their life. And that basically just having that money was just one less thing. It's like, oh, we don't have to, like Forrest Gump, we don't have to worry about money anymore, but we have it. But and I'm sure there's people right now screaming at this, listening like, oh, you just don't know. But I guess my point is that, and I used to think that way, like, oh, I needed $1 million, $2 million to be happy. But now, I'm in my mid-30s, and it seems like more to me that, I don't know if it's maturity, my morals and values have changed in the last few years. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But, now to me, it's about these people that I surround myself with in life and what we do in those moments, and like going out to a good dinner and stuff. And I heard this quote maybe 5 years, 10 years back, and I've said it on here before, so folks, I'm sorry again, but it's basically someone said that the only thing you really need to worry about in life is just whenever you walk into a restaurant, you don't have to worry about how much the bill is going to be, and that everything else in life is just bullshit. And I was like, wow, that made so much sense. That it doesn't, like you could walk into any restaurant with whoever you wanted to, take care of the bill, and just walk out there. And they was basically just saying, yeah, that would mean the most to you in your life, just breaking bread with the people that you surround yourself with and having a good meal. And I was like, wow, why did I never think about that
It's
before?
experiences over anything else, really, at this point. Like, I say this to my mom. So my mom, I was going to say obviously, but I guess it's not obvious, is an immigrant. Both of my parents are both immigrants, right? So they had a very survival mindset, much like any other immigrant parents, right?
Yeah.
Literally just making money just to make ends meet and ensure that their kids are able to go to school and have clothes and stuff like that. And now my mom and my dad both haven't really left that mindset. So it's kind of really fascinating for me because I'll sit there and look at her and I'm like, you don't need to work anymore. Whatever Canadian dream is, like you achieved it. We're good. Like both your kids are doing pretty well. Like I don't know what else you would want out of life. And for her, it's like constantly just trying to accumulate more wealth. And I understand it. But then at the same time, she'll sit there and be like, I'm doing it for you guys. And I'm like, but you can't take it with you. Like it's not going to be buried into the ground with you. I'm not going to bury it in the ground with me. I'm not like some kind of king in Egypt who would do that and like have like a whole crypt and stuff like that, right? Like I'm like, there's no point. So I'm like, for me, it's much more about the things that I do and making sure that I feel like I've lived my life. So like every time I talk to my friends about, it's a little morbid, but we talk about death in a sense, and I'll sit there and I'll be like, literally, my measure of success is going to be how many people are standing at my deathbed or sitting around my deathbed wanting to hear about everything that I got up to. And hopefully I'll still have those memories because I'm like, I did some weird things. That nobody will ever, I'm not going to tell anybody until I die. Like literally the weirdest stuff. But like, I'm like, nobody really knew what I was up to.
I just do that.
Just from like dating life and business and stuff like that, just like random things that I just like really shouldn't have done that I went ahead and did. And being a kid from Surrey, and I think only people within Surrey really understand life here, but it's just like a very like we're expected to act in a certain way. Maybe other communities are like that as well, but it's very much like a Surrey thing at the very least. So my friends and all my family are like very like cookie cutter. They're exactly those people. They went to school, they got their jobs, their 9 to 5s, found somebody, got married, started having kids, and I'm here literally moving every 20 minutes to a different city or a different province and starting businesses and adopting dogs versus having children. Nobody understands my life. It's kind of really interesting. So it's like really fun for me to sit there and I'm like, wait till you hear what I did. Like, wait till you hear. I'm like, it's going to be the greatest time ever. So now everyone's just kind of sitting there going like, okay, so you have 40 years left, basically, is what you're telling us. And I'm like, yeah, you'll wait 40 years for this.
Does that and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, just because, I'm not moving around or anything, but I'm single, don't have kids, and I've just kind of concentrated more on me and my life rather than, I guess, doing the whole social norm of getting married, having kids, and living out
Mm-hmm.
just your days doing that way. I mean, and I'm always the guy going back to, grandma's Thanksgiving or Christmas, and oh yeah, where's my grandkids? When you have, when you're doing that, like, I don't know, grandma. Like, maybe you tell me, but you pick a date, maybe.
Oh man.
But I mean, and it's not so bad now, just because that I'm used to it, I guess, and that I know that's just me. That's just my lifestyle and just whatever. And I've accepted it. But I guess that's my question though, I mean, does that make you feel like, I used to feel weird, I guess, in a sense, like I was a black sheep kind of, and not really. And I only felt that way because, like I said, my family would make me almost feel that way, because I'd be walking in thinking everything's fine, but it wasn't until the conversation changed and it was like, hey, when you get married, like, I don't know. What do you mean? When you bringing somebody over, like, I don't know. Like, maybe I don't want to right now. So, and like, I don't know. Like it always, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it always just kind of, it's like a gnat. It's very annoying to me in a sense.
It's not too bad for me. It's um I think it's almost like, not to take away from your experience, but I feel like it's almost worse for women because like everyone's just like, oh, you have only so much time and then you
Yeah.
have to do all these other things and all that random crap. And I'm thankful that my family hasn't quite gotten to that point in their like little conversations of like, when are you going to get married? But growing up, I didn't really like my parents, none of them, actually either or of my parents, which is kind of shocking because you would think my dad might, ever really brought up marriage. And then it was, I think, my brother's wedding about 3.5 years ago. Like one of my aunts came over and she's like, it's your turn next. When are you going to get married? And I turned around and looked at her. I'm like, why? I'm like, I make money. I take care of 2 dogs. I have a mortgage. I have a business. We have staff that are taken care of. I'm like, I have friends that I actually get to hang out with all the time. I'm like, I'm well taken care of. I'm like, why do I need a man to mess that up? And I remember her standing there just looking at me and had no response. And I was like, I don't like,
Yeah.
I'm like, you had to get married. Like that was a financial decision. It wasn't necessarily that you had like, you obviously had a choice, but like it was very fine. It was a financial decision really at this point, right? So like for me, I'm like, I don't have that. I don't need to do any of that. And I remember she like literally told everybody that she got yelled at by me for like 3 months or something. So then everybody was like, steer clear. And they know that I'm kind of the one to tell everybody off too. So like nobody really says anything to me anyway.
Nice.
Because my mom's done a really good job of like telling everybody that I have anger issues. Like she's very good at just telling everybody all of my negative qualities, and that would really upset me. And then eventually I started thinking about it. I'm like, it actually worked out for me that you kept on doing that. So I'm like, honestly, I'm like, thank you. That's perfect. Like that's exactly what I wanted. I don't want people to hassle me. But now my sister-in-law has gotten very comfortable. And it's unfortunate. So now she's constantly like, oh, at your wedding at this, and we're gonna wear this at your wedding, and we're gonna do this at your wedding. And then my mom's gonna,
Everyone
jumped on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
So now it's a really awkward time, but like it's not horrible. And with my mom, it's very easy to just sit there and tell her to stop talking. And then that's usually kind of the end of that conversation. But there's like 3 of us left in the family basically that are like still, I guess, single. Yeah, I think there's only 3 of us. 2 of them are boys. And like all 3 of us are just getting hassled all the time. So every time I walk in, I'm like, leave them alone.
Yeah.
And everyone's just like, why are you getting upset? And I'm like, because I'm like, I understand it better than anybody else. Like, I'm like, just leave the boys alone. We'll find them when we do. But like, nobody really quite understands the digital market, or not the digital marketing, sorry, the digital dating of things. Right. So everybody else found their person organically for the most part because they met when they were in school in their 20s. Unfortunately, I never did. Or fortunately, really at this point, depending on how you want to look at it. yeah, on it, my life turned out perfectly fine. I'm very happy in it. So it's just kind of one of those moments where you have to really kind of balance it. But for me, yelling at everybody works really well.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know what my thought is. You, when you said, "Yeah, I'm happy the way life is going for me now," it's like you said, I feel like I'm doing great in life. As far as I'm very independent. I have a house, I have a great job, I got 2 dogs, and I'm doing fine. Like I'm happy. I work out. I'm not addicted to drugs. Yeah, I like to have a couple drinks on the weekends, but whatever. But it's like other people make you feel that you should feel bad about it just because you're not into the norm. And it's like, I don't get this at all, bro. But yeah, and just
Yeah, but that's just like anything really at this point, like even starting business or even starting a podcast at this
even
point.
good
Like,
point.
right? Like everyone's going to sit there and be like, why do you need to do that? Because it's something that they might have thought of and were too fearful to do, or it's something that just literally they just don't understand. So the quickest thing to do or the most natural reaction is I'm going to hate it and make you feel weird because I can't be the person to feel inferior around you is what I've usually kind of noticed. Or that's what I feel is that like a lot of people seem to think that when somebody goes out and does something that they think that they're better. And I
Sure.
was like, no, I'm just not built to be an employee. I've learned over 4 years after telling 3 bosses to go fuck themselves that I'm not built to work for somebody else. That's just not
Yeah.
who I am. So I have no choice. I have to start a business. Otherwise, I'm screwed. So
Yes.
like nobody really understands that. They just assume that like if you're going on even like a weight loss or a workout journey or something like that, they're just like, well, why aren't you happy the way that you are? Well, I want to. I don't know.
I'm not
I'm
doing it.
not sitting here thinking that I'm better than you. This is what I want to do.
Yes. It's like insecurities in people because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because was starting the podcast and working out the way I do, and now that I'm actually trying to, I like learning too, and I found that out. I used to think I didn't like learning, but like I try to read more, and I try to do things that I listen to a podcast on road trips and stuff rather than music, and people are like, "Why are you listening to this? Why don't you put on music?" I was like, "I don't. This is interesting to me. I don't know." Like, so yeah, it's just, and that's one thing that I've seen that people, and I'm not calling anybody out or anything, but people just they see you almost becoming a better person and they feel insecure about themselves and what they're doing with life, sitting on the couch and watching Netflix and eating Doritos. And I do that too sometimes. I'm not saying I don't,
Mm-hmm.
but I like that just as much as anyone else. But that's just kind of what it is. And that it's like what I said a little bit earlier about comparison's a thief of joy. And people instantly, it's like instantaneously is what people do now. They instantly start comparing themselves to everybody around them, and
Yeah.
that's so easy. And that, yeah, and I guess that's my point is that, and I don't want to say I don't want people looking up to me, and I don't really want to be an inspiring person, but I just want to do things that I know that are doing well for me and that I'm happy with. And if other people see me doing it, don't throw shade at me or whatever, but just say, if you want help, I'll help you along the way. I would love, rising tide lifts all boats, right? I love helping people out. And that's like kind of what success
Mm-hmm.
means to me. And just that, yeah, like this, even if you see somebody going, like starting to lose weight, just don't start asking them why and they're never going to be able to do it. Like pick them up, man. Be good for them. Even if they made $1 million with their business, so you're fine. I got you. You're fine.
Yeah.
Even if I made if a person makes $1 million with their business, don't be upset about it. Where they say that, oh, well, I could have, maybe that could have been me or whatever. Well, it could be you if you get off your ass and stop eating Doritos and watching
Yeah.
Netflix every night. So
It's actually funny because I just recorded a reel for Instagram about
ooh,
doing things that make you fearful. Because it was, I think about a couple of weeks ago, I had done like a live podcast and he had asked what business advice I would give to somebody. And I'm like, try. Literally, your steps ahead. The moment you try, your steps ahead of everybody else, right? You have to push through that fear, admittedly, and it sucks 100%. It's not fun, but like, um, just simply trying and possibly even failing is significantly better than never doing it. And I think with those people who feel inferior, I think it's because they did what was the social norm and they were promised happiness essentially,
mm-hmm.
right? So I think at one point or another, and this is my own assumption and I could be completely wrong, but I think at one point or another they kind of looked at their lives and just went, this isn't the full picture quite yet. So for them, they don't really know what's missing because this whole picture of getting married, having children, hanging out with your family all the time, having a couple friends is like the ideal perfect life for some people. But like it might not be for you, but you bought into this whole idea and suddenly now you're sitting here going, holy shit, like this isn't it. So now seeing somebody else going to do something different is just one of those moments where you're going, oh, I'm allowed to explore. Like I'm allowed to go do stuff. And I think that might be the moment of realization for them where it's just like, oh, I feel uncomfortable with this feeling of realizing that I could have done all these things and I chose not to.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna kind of shit on this person and make it feel like they're the ones who are missing out and I'm the one who has everything.
Well, that was me. I mean, that was definitely me going through my teenage years and you know roughly early adulthood, just because that I was always told, go to college, you'll get a great, great job coming out of college, get as much degrees as you can, then go work for wherever and, till you retire, then sit on a beach and be a snowbird, I guess, and go down to Florida when it's warm and whatever snowbirds do. I don't even know. Go live where you want, then go to Florida when it's warm. I guess that was the point. But yeah, but I think kind of going back on a little bit of COVID again, though, it kind of hit me that I was, is this really what I wanted out of my life? Is this what I had planned? Is this really what I thought I would end up as? And yeah, I don't know. And like kind of asking you earlier about, if you thought, your life would have been different going towards not this way compared to your first job or whatever, that I don't know, like how much mine would have been different. But I like to think about it a lot and just to understand, like, I guess what Will Smith says, you can't really know where you can go until you know where you've been. So yeah, and so like now,
Yeah, I think about it a lot. Oh,
yeah, so
sorry.
like now it kind of makes me like, all right, I've changed my course. I'm kind of looking more towards number one, I guess it's the same, watching out for me and what makes me happy. And like, yeah, and then whether that is focusing on a career or focusing on if you want to have family and kids or focusing on whatever, if you want to travel, the whole globe, then cool. Yeah. Focus on that. And that's but it took, life stopping, I guess, and getting out of my daily routine and, living off momentum and just saying, oh, wait, is this really what I expected? What's changed up now a little bit, and I made some good changes. It's good. I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I wasn't happy before, but it's better. That's what I'm trying to say. It's better. I'm using that compound effect, making better decisions, leading up to bigger things. So yeah, I guess
Exactly. It's about staying consistent and improving 1%. Really, at this point, is the thing that I really love is when you do the math on staying consistent, it stays zero, but you add 1% to everything and it grows 3.77 times, I believe. So like this whole notion of just staying in the same place has always just been kind of weird for me. But like my personal belief has always been, if you're not learning, you're basically dying. Like it's because there's no growth. Like you're not expanding your mindset. You're not doing new things or exploring new things. And I really think that like it's unfortunate that a lot of us are working for heaps of money and that's literally the only goal, because I think the human experience is actually experiences. I think we're supposed to go see the world. I think we're supposed to sit on the grass and just watch the clouds go by. I think we're supposed to literally just have time alone and have time with our families and just be connected. And it's just working has always kind of taken that away, because now everybody measures success off of working. But then the whole marriage part comes in all of it. So then it's just like, okay, well, what side was I supposed to do? Was I supposed to continually date, or was I supposed to build a company? Somebody please tell me what the options are. And oftentimes they're like both. And I was like, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're just not, like you don't have the capacity for it. And for me, I didn't have the capacity for it. I can't manage a relationship and then a business and try to keep two dogs alive along with myself. Like it's just too much. Am I in a better place and better positioned for something now? 100%. But if this was 2-3 years ago, absolutely not. I had no idea what I wanted out of life at that point. So I think a lot of people don't credit that experience enough. I think it's just one of those moments where everybody just goes, well, I'm not there yet. But I'm like, well, maybe you're not supposed to be. Like,
Yeah,
maybe this
it's
is the
okay.
time for you to explore
Yeah.
and go do something and really kind of get that, fill your cup as much as you possibly can. And what if that person that you're supposed to be with is in Italy and you've just stopped yourself from going to Italy because that's not something that you're supposed to do? Like, the logic of it just like never follows through. Because every time anybody says anything, they're like, do you want to go to this event or go do something? And I'm like, yeah, because you never know what's going to happen. I'll never know what I missed out on until I actually go and do it at this
Exactly.
point.
I heard.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about Elon Musk, and that's not my point. To my point, but I heard him on another podcast, and they kind of asked him what the meaning of life was to him, and
Mm-hmm.
he basically said it was to exist. And I took that as like, ooh, like what you were saying, like go outside and like watch the clouds go by and travel and do all that. And I guess, if this is too deep, but is that what, like, is that your meaning of life? Is that what you see yourself, working for a set amount of years and set yourself up and then like, hey, I'll just do whatever I want to do for the rest of my life.
I think so, at least right now. I think that is. If you asked me a couple of years ago, I think it would have been straight money. Like I would have just been like, I work to make cash.
I know what you mean.
Right. And I think now as I get a bit older, I'm starting to see the world a bit more. And I'm like, we don't like money's not forever. I got very lucky. My mother has done well for herself. So like if the worst comes to worst, I have a safety blanket on that front, which I do understand not a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And that I'm incredibly fortunate. But for me, it was kind of funny. It was almost a little over a year ago. I was driving one of my brother's friends home from like a wedding. And I remember we were just chatting about, he's in med school. So he was talking about like a future clinic that he was going to put in this really dodgy area. And he was saying it jokingly. And then started going on about how I would help him with the marketing. And I was like, we'll see. I don't really like you that much, but I'm like, we'll see. And,
I love it.
And he just sat there and he's like, wow, that hurts. And I'm like, I'm just trying to be honest with you, dude. Like, and then he kind of takes that conversation and he's like, well, you've done quite a bit with your career. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. And he's like, so what's the game plan? And I was like, I don't know, revenue? Like I had no idea. And I remember him sitting, he's like, you and money. He's like, seriously, do you really think that makes sense? And I just kind of like took that for like a year. I sat on that for a year and I just like kept on thinking about it. And for him, I think it was this moment of going, this is not going to be the only thing that's going to make you happy. Like he could see it in a way that I had never did, which was fascinating in its own self. And as I kept on exploring that comment, for me, it was make enough to obviously be able to retire within, hopefully a decade really at this point. If I could retire by 40, I'd be pretty happy. But at the same time, being able to still, but I know myself well enough to know that I never could stop actually working. Like it's just not who I am. I go on vacations and 3 days later, I am bored out of my mind. I need to like open up my computer and start doing something. So for me, I think it's more philanthropy than anything that would actually end up happening. So then it's just a matter of figuring out how that would actually work out. So for me, like just trying to get more women into STEM subjects, but especially like more women of color is something that I would love to do. And I get to somewhat do that on Instagram a little bit just by showing that I'm like a woman who does pay-per-click, which is technically pretty technical as a role. And I get messages all the time where they're just sitting there going, like, I didn't know that anybody looked like me in this industry. And it's kind of really nice to hear that because it's just like, oh, that's great. And then a couple of them will be like, I want to be you when I grow up. And I'm like, oh, weird. That's a really strange comment, but okay, thanks. Like, but if I could do that on a grander scale, I think that would be like really truly what life is supposed to be. I think we're supposed to try to at least leave it better than how we found it. So if I could hopefully change a life for the better, I think that's probably where I'd sit there and be like, yeah, I lived exactly how I wanted to.
I like that.
Thank you.
But
gets a little philosophical a little bit sometimes. So a lot of people are just like, I don't know how to respond.
No, it should be philosophical, and yeah, because everyone, no, how am I want to say this? So yeah, because again, I used to not think and I'm not saying I'm philosophical by any means, but everyone's got their own thoughts about things, just like questions like that. And then doing these podcasts and having conversations with my friends over drinks or dinner or whatever, that when those type of questions come up, you can actually say something better than like the what's it, like one of the normal things is just go see is there 7 or 8 wonders of the world now or something, right? And does that, I don't know.
I
Good.
don't know.
Well, yeah, I think there's.
I need to Google that.
Yeah, there was 7. There might be 8. I don't know. But anyway, that's why I need somebody fact checking me on these things. But yeah, but now I don't mind trying to express those ideas in my head and those thoughts, that because, and maybe again, like it might be just because I'm more mature now, that I don't care. Like, are you going to judge me off what I think maybe the meaning of life is compared to what your meaning of life is? And just like, hey, and I'm not saying yours is wrong. I'm not saying I'm right either, but like we were talking about money and stuff earlier, like that means more to me compared to, and if you want to have all the money in the world and buy Bugattis all day and, go to the new in Saudi Arabia building like some turtle city I was reading about today too. It's a floating turtle city is what they're.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it was Saudi Arabia. But anyway, it's like, if you want to go do that, then that's great. That's cool. If that's what your thing is, I love it. Cool. Good for you. But yeah, my point is that, yeah, I think everyone's a little bit of philosophical in their own way. It's just a matter of getting it out, word vomiting almost. And that, and who cares? Like, and that was one thing, with me starting my podcast, I hated conversations like this, or not like this, but like that. And, or like talking about politics or religion, just because I was always afraid of the judgment or what people would think of me. And oh, wait, no, nobody's going to like me if I say something that's not part of, again, the norm. And so now it's just kind of like, whatever, if you don't want to be in my circle, cool, that's fine, whatever. But just so everyone's different. We all have our different ways of life. And, my life is completely different from yours, but that's cool. That's fine. We can sin. We can now, we don't have to agree on everything, but we don't have to hate each other just because of that.
Yeah, it's not better or worse. It literally is just different. And that's like a conversation that I tend to have like a lot with my siblings sometimes, because they very much followed the path that they were supposed to, or our parents had set out. And sometimes I'll make random comments about like how they all met their significant others at like 19, 20, 21. And I feel like that was just far too young. I feel like they didn't really know who they were as human beings. And thankfully they found great partners. But I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, don't you guys ever wonder like who you could have been if you actually dated? Because like all of these, like a lot of them, it's like their first and only relationship.
Yeah.
So for me, I think people would benefit from dating, like actually meeting different people, learning what they don't like about somebody, what they like about.
Uh-oh.
And oftentimes my brother isn't a fan of it, because he'll just sit there and be like, well, don't you think it's cool that you grew up with somebody? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that, because I'm like, then you're basically one person and not 2 different individuals or 2 separate individuals. Is the way that I've always taken it. And then oftentimes you could see that they think that I'm being judgmental, and I often have to go back and be like, it's not better, it's not worse, it's just different.
Yes.
And have to really remind them that I'm like, I don't care. Because I'm like, really, at this point, I'm like, your path is your path. If you're happy in your life right now, that's the only thing that I could ever want as a sister. But I'm like, it's just not what was meant for me. So I'm like, I would love for you guys not to look at me as if I'm like this wounded dog on, the side of the road, and actually see that I'm actually totally fine. It's just my life is just a little different than yours.
Yeah. I think a lot of people like to, and I'm not saying they're being negative towards people, but they mean well in what they say, but the way they say it is just that, bro, I know you're trying to throw out advice and help me out and, get me from point A to point B, but you're not really, are you really hearing what you're saying? And that's one thing that I've learned too, is just that, yeah, it's just, I take everything with what they're saying. That's fine. I'll listen to it, but unless it becomes too ridiculous. But yeah, it's like, that's great, but I just can't. We're done here. I mean, just because I appreciate you trying to help me out, but I'm not going to change my ways just because you think I need to. And again, it's like what we said earlier. Just because that I know myself and I know how things are, and just because you think that I should have married my high school sweetheart, then cool. Then I don't know, maybe life would have been great there, but who knows? We don't know that though. And, and also one of these things that, I'm agreeing with you just because, like I said earlier, well, how old was I? 20 years ago, 18 years old, that, I didn't know what love was, and I didn't know what I would want into a partner and what I even wanted out of my own life. So, and like to expect that, oh yeah, just go get the job, marry somebody and have kids and live out your days and work till you're got 30 years in and go retire. Cool. That's okay. That's great. If some people did that, that's great. But now it's kind of like when I look into the dating world and stuff, like I don't think I could have handled that back in now, like the way I am now. Like I would want somebody who would want to learn with me and grow with me and start up, like I keep saying, like I told somebody one time, like start an empire with me almost. And that, yeah, we all have ambitions and goals. And I respect the hell out of that from and a significant other or a partner. And that I would, I just don't want somebody who just wants to come home, just lay on the couch and eat Doritos all night, which I'm saying there's times for that. I mean, that's, but
Doritos are a great chip. They are like top 3.
I love Doritos. But I don't get to eat them a lot, but I love them, especially nacho cheese Doritos. I will crush them. That's like that's my weakness.
I have to buy the smaller bags because if I buy the bigger ones, like oh gosh.
Yeah, sometimes I feel good and God, I'm going to control myself. I'm only going to have some, and like I put it on the counter, and like I keep them away from me. But every time I get up and I walk by, I grab like a handful. Then we can do whatever I got to do. Then go back by. Then I grab another handful. I got to go back down. I grab another handful. It's like I've ate almost 3/4 of the bag. I might as well finish it off.
Exactly. I was just gonna say that.
It's like, well, I've gone this far. So anyway, that was not my. I don't know, but Doritos are good. I guess that was my whole point of that part. But anyway, this is going sideways. If Doritos wants to sponsor this podcast, that would be great. So, but anyway.
I wouldn't mind a couple bags too if you.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
Pass them over my way.
Yeah, if you want, whatever flavors you want, I got you. I usually go nacho cheese, sometimes Cool Ranch.
Nacho cheese is my favorite, but they also did the I don't know what they're called, like the roll-ups of them. So like kind of like the Taki versions, and they're actually like spicy.
What?
And there's one bag, I believe it's a medium bag, and that one's like the perfect level of heat for me. Oh my God. I like obsess over them to the point where I'm like searching the stores for them sometimes.
Up now. Hold on here. I'm like right.
Yeah, I'll try to find out what they're called. Okay. And I will definitely let you know, because I think I have a bag, but I think I bought the wrong flavor and it was just not enjoyable. But like there's one that I just kill for.
Well, besides chips, what else? I mean, I know we're kind of getting short on time here, but besides chips, like what is your thing? Like, do you have a go-to meal, like a food? Are you a foodie?
Honestly, I hate to say it, not really. I'm that person who I literally eat to survive. I'm like the worst. Like to the point where I actually have to intermittent fast because otherwise I will forget to eat. Because I just get so like consumed by work that I don't really realize I need to be eating. Mm-hmm. And I've done it where I've like literally done like completed 26-hour fasts without even noticing and woken up and I'm like, oh shit, like I was supposed to eat. So like I actually have an app on my phone that's just like, you have 30 minutes left. And I'm like, okay, time to make food. Like I have to go do this. So I'm not really much of a foodie, but I definitely have like a massive sweet tooth. Like Starburst Fave Reds are like my entire life. I hunt them down because they're not readily available in Canada. So I actually like hunt them down to the point where like even my siblings will be like, we're going to the States. And I'm like, you know what you have to buy me, right? Like a massive 3-pound bag. Like this has to last me about a year at the very least. And they're just like, they're almost embarrassed to do it. But I'm like, you have no choice. Like you're my sibling. Admittedly, you didn't get a choice in that matter, but I'm like, it's your duty now. You have to go buy me Fave Reds.
I wanted to ask you this earlier when you were talking about vacation, and what you just said kind of reminded me of it. But when you find yourself relaxing too much and I don't want to say not working, but just not doing anything. Do you find your mind getting restless and like almost bored and like, I should be doing something right now. Like I can't just keep doing this. Is that why?
Yeah, I feel like it actually happens even on like a daily basis when I don't work as much. I like have a lot of this like kind of guilt around it. And that's something that I need to work on because obviously I shouldn't be feeling guilty if I'm taking a day off. But like, it's just, I think it's really my parents rubbing off on me. My mom, like when we were growing up, she had two jobs. My dad did 16-hour days, 6 days a week. So
Okay.
for me, we constantly saw them working. Like that was just all they ever did. So I think in my head somewhere, I just went, if you're not working, you're like you're wasting time essentially. So now I've been trying to work on that a little bit more because it's interesting. I don't know. I was in Mexico for like 7 days. Day three, I'm sitting on phone calls doing ad stuff, and I'm just sitting there. And my friends are just like, seriously, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, this is happening. I'm like, I'm watching people have fun while I'm working. Like this is how we're doing this really at this point. So they weren't very happy with me, but it's okay. We're still friends. So
Matters. You're still friends. I mean, you kind of like know how you are at to a certain point then. And I had friends, like I went on a bachelor trip. What month is it? So it was back in June. But there was one guy down there who had his laptop out and he was even working while we are all just kind of sitting around having a couple beers and just bullshitting. And yeah, it was just like, hey, what are you doing, man? And he's like, I gotta run. I forgot what he does logistics for something, but it was like, all right, cool, whatever. Do your thing. We'll just sit over here. But he was, he was kind of around on the conversation, but I don't care. I mean, it was my thing that I respect it. If you want to work, that's fine. You know what you're doing. Go ahead and work. But also have a little fun here and there.
yeah, as long as you're not hindering on everybody else's fun. So it wasn't like I was sitting there going, I need to work and we can't go on this
Yeah.
excursion type of deal. It was, you guys go to the pool party. I'll be right here. We're still in the same vicinity. I can see you guys having fun. We're like,
Exactly.
this is fine, right? Like, that's the last thing that I want to do is ruin somebody else's trip. So like one of my brothers and I actually went to LA in March, and it was literally the perfect matchup for traveling because he's the type of person who loves sleeping. So he would sleep in until about 10, 11, and I would wake up at around 7 and I would just crush through work within the 3, 4 hours.
That's
So then
perfect.
by the time he was up and ready, we were ready to go and actually just enjoy our time. And it was perfect because it was like, I didn't mess up your sleep.
Yeah.
You didn't mess up my work schedule. We both win. Like it was absolutely perfect. So now I'm kind of constantly like, I'm like, where are we going next? I want to do that again. That was fun. Like that's my version of a vacation. I don't mind it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, like you get some stuff done, you still have fun, see some things, do some things, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's all good at the end. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah.
Love it. Well, Amit, I'm glad we did this. I don't want to hold up any more of your time and all that good stuff. But yeah, do you have anything you need to plug or people want to find you or and all that good stuff? Your Instagram, and I know you said you make some reels and stuff. So or anything you just want to plug in general, just feel free to do that.
Um, I guess I could plug work stuff since that was kind of predominantly like the underlying conversation really at this point. So yeah, I own an online marketing agency. We specialize in pay per click. It's called Hopskip Media. So you can find us at hopskipmedia.com. Instagram, the handle is a little bit different. So everywhere on the internet, I'm AdWords girl. So I guess I can spell it out: AdWordsGirl. Yeah, and mainly most of our content is Instagram and LinkedIn. So we put a bunch of tips and tricks on pay per click and how to improve your results if you're running ads. If you're a business owner, if you're interested in getting into PPC, it's a really great resource. Admittedly, I am a little bit biased on that, but I think it's a really great resource. Um, yeah, so yeah, I guess those two things are really the plug.
Another quick question. I mean, where did Hop Skip? Is that what you said? Hop Skip Media? That was the name of it.
Yeah,
How
so
did it?
originally the company was just called Ameet Khabra Marketing because I couldn't figure out what to write, and the guy was just like, when I had applied for like sole proprietorship, I wrote my name down, and he's like, there has to be something at the end, and I kind of stared at him, and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, marketing. And he's like, okay, I'm writing marketing down, and I went, okay, totally fine. And then when we went to incorporate, I just kept on going with it. So I'm like, Ameet Khabra Marketing Inc. Like I don't know what else to call it. And then I ended up adopting a rabbit, and he would hop skip around everywhere. And he was like the cutest little thing. I loved him so much. So yeah, so then one day I was like, it'd be really cool to have a whole logo and company around this rabbit. And then suddenly Hop Skip Media was together, and it's yeah, the rest is history.
I like it. I love it.
Thank you.
I like stories like that. Just that, hey, that's how it came to be about. Rather than
Yeah.
just that, oh, I saw it in a book. You know?
No, I'll always have some kind of random reason for why I did something.
Yeah, all those weird reasons
count
that
on me on
we can't
that.
talk about.
Yeah. Maybe one day. I don't know. I'm not quite ready to reveal my secret life to everyone.
All right. Well, you can give me some hints off air one day. Since now you got my curiosity and my attention on that.
That's fair.
But okay. But yeah, anything else? Anything else you need to say, plug or whatever? You feel good? Everything good?
No, I feel good. I'm
it.
really happy that you had me on. This was actually this was really great. I always have to put actually in there. And I'm like, no, that sounds like I thought it was going to go otherwise. Like I never do. But yeah, no, this was a really great conversation. I don't think I've actually had one like that was like that free flowing. Usually everybody has like their set topics and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, no, that's one thing that I always do or always say too, that I never know how these things are going to go just because like whatever emails we exchanged or whatever, that you don't really know what you're getting on the other side of this Zoom call, really. Right. Just because you can listen to some other podcasts they've been on and, whatever media kits they have, but it's really that, wow, we're meeting. It's kind of like a blind date. Like really, like, what am I getting myself into on this? Is this going to go well? What am I going to say? What are they going to say? Don't say anything stupid. Like, oh no, what just happened? So yeah, it's just like, and it works a lot, and I don't know if it's just what it is, but magic happens and things go pretty well, like tonight. So anyway,
yeah,
that's my
that's perfect. Yeah, I guess it's like that the vibe or the chemistry or whatever you want to call it. It's just like, okay, are we on the same page in that sense? And that usually makes the conversation significantly better, actually.
Good. I agree 100%. But yeah, again, well, thanks for doing this. Thanks for being here. I enjoyed it. You're a badass person.
So. Thank you.
But anything else? Then I'm good. If you're good, so we can.
Yes, I am good. Yeah.
Good night, everybody. We're out of here. See ya.